Fever. Caitlin Clark did make history tonight. We gonna talk about it, man, in an iconic fashion. She ended up making her 500 assists to Sophie Cunningham, but the referees is still in the show. Just ultimately still.
What was supposed to be a historic, unforgettable night in women's professional basketball was completely hijacked, violently sabotaged, and ultimately ruined by a perfect storm of catastrophic coaching, baffling officiating, and a team that seemed determined to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The Indiana Fever just suffered a soul-crushing, agonizing, and entirely avoidable 88-90 loss to the Golden State Valkyries, a game where the final score doesn't even begin to tell the real story of the absolute disaster we just witnessed. Tonight, individual greatness and historic achievements were completely overshadowed by pure incompetence, leaving fans and analysts screaming at their screens in disbelief, wondering how an organization could squander such a monumental opportunity.
4 fouls called on the fucking Fever tonight. Excuse my language, bro. 19 calls, we're now 20 on Golden State. I'm furious right now, bro, because that's how bad this game has been. Stephanie White, put Caitlin on the ball. Stephanie White, put Caitlin off the ball. Like, damn, Stephanie, make up your mind. Did Caitlin Clark set majority of the damn third quarter? This was just buffoonery. Just
backslash in.
I'm hella mad. Look at this. Look at. How the hell can we win when they look at this flop? You ain't even get hit. She ain't even get hit in the head, dog. She ain't even get hit in the head. Y'all see this? Bro, this has been all day. This has been all day.
But here's the kicker. Amidst the chaos, amidst the heartbreak, Caitlin Clark made WNBA history in a way that should be headlining every major sports network on the planet. Forget the loss for a second, because what she did tonight demands to be documented, respected, and recorded. In the first half alone, Clark recorded her 500th career assist, a raw number that barely scratches the surface of the context and sheer, unprecedented dominance of her journey. This wasn't just another milestone. This was a statement. This was a player in her rookie season, demonstrating a level of court vision and playmaking that puts her in a league of her own.
Get this.
Backslash in.
View of her. Hit her all in the face. Veronica Burton been on one all game with Caitlin Clark. All game. Veronica Burton made it her business to like disrupt Caitlin and be just an asshole all game to her, bro. I can't stunt she ball. Veronica Burton definitely.
By delivering that record-breaking pass, Caitlin Clark officially became the fastest player in the entire history of the WNBA to reach both 1,000 career points and 500 career assists. She did it in just 59 games. Let that massive number truly sink into your mind for a second. 59 games. Think about the legends of the sport, the icons whose names are etched into the WNBA's history books. Sue Bird, widely considered one of the greatest, most fundamentally perfect point guards to ever pick up a basketball, needed 82 games to reach that exact same statistical milestone. Sabrina Ionescu, the walking triple-double machine, needed 84 games. Even Dawn Staley, a Hall of Fame legend and an icon of the sport, took 101 games. Clark needed 59. That's 23 fewer games than the greatest point guard of her generation. This isn't just a record. It's a historic, almost unbreakable benchmark that belongs in the conversation with the most mind-blowing achievements in all of women's professional basketball.
Man, my goodness, man. Now I got to talk about Raven Johnson, career game, man. 16 points, 7 to 10 from the field, just outstanding. She shot 90% from three. Now it's a 2-point game. Come on, Kelsey Mitchell.
Backslash in.
Oh my God, bro. Correlation said, I just don't understand how Steph watched that possession and didn't call a timeout earlier. I'm so annoyed. I absolutely despise the last possession. I'm just shaking my head. Stephanie White completely.
The pace at which Clark is accumulating these milestones is mathematically unprecedented, absolutely blowing away anything we've ever seen. She's not just breaking records, she's obliterating them, redefining what's possible for a rookie in this league. She's the first player in WNBA history with multiple games of 30-plus points and 10-plus assists in the same season. And she's doing all of this while operating as the undisputed #1 target for every single defensive coordinator across the league. Every opponent's game plan is to stop her, to suffocate her, to make her life a living hell on the court. Tonight, despite that relentless, suffocating defensive pressure, she still finished the game with 16 points, pulling down 4 rebounds, dishing out 6 assists, and adding 3 crucial steals to her defensive resume. This should have been a night of unadulterated celebration, a highlight reel for the ages. But then the second half happened. And this is where the celebration tragically ends, and the deep, boiling frustration, the kind that makes you want to throw your remote at the screen, truly begins. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. Now listen to this part, because nobody in the mainstream media is willing to talk honestly about the referee situation that had Caitlin Clark visibly furious, shouting in disbelief, and completely losing her composure on the court. And honestly, I don't blame her for a single second. Multiple times in the second half, Clark put her head down, drove aggressively into the paint, and absorbed incredibly heavy, violent contact from the Valkyries' interior defenders without getting a single foul call. You could see the absolute rage burning in her eyes, a frustration that had been building all night as she openly jarred at the officials, practically begging them to do their jobs and protect the players on the floor. She eventually drew a deeply controversial technical foul in the second half for her completely justifiable reaction to a blatant no call on a drive where she was clearly, undisputedly hit on the arm. That single technical foul cost the Indiana Fever 2 crucial foul shots in a game that ended with a final score of 88-90. Those 2 points could have completely changed the outcome, the momentum, and the entire narrative of the evening. It's absolutely wild to think about. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. Think about those 2 points. Clark shot a flawless, perfect 8 for 8 from the free throw line tonight. The number of times she drove into the paint, absorbed body blows, and did not get sent to the line was clearly astronomically higher than 8. The officiating in San Francisco, inside a deeply hostile building with the Valkyries desperately defending their home court, was absolutely not consistent with the respect a player of Clark's caliber should be receiving. This isn't just an isolated incident. It's a terrifying pattern of physical neglect that has been visibly allowed since the opening night of the season, and it was documented perfectly for the whole world to see tonight. But as angry, furious, and disgusted as we are at the referees for their blatant dereliction of duty, we have to talk about the absolute buffoonery coming from the Indiana Fever sideline. We have to talk about the head coach, Stephanie White, who put on an absolute masterclass tonight in how to mismanage a close, highly competitive basketball game. The strategic rotations were not just confusing, they were entirely baffling, deeply destructive to the team's offensive flow, and quite frankly, unforgivable. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. And get this, the coaching malpractice does not stop with Caitlin Clark. Oh no, it gets so much worse. Look closely at the box score. Look at the players who were forced to watch this disaster unfold from the sidelines, players who were brought in specifically to address the team's biggest weaknesses. Grace Van Sluten, the highly athletic forward that the Fever front office signed specifically to address their massive front court depth problem, was handed a DNP coach's decision. She did not play a single second. Tiasha Harris, DNP coach's decision. Demaris Dantas, DNP coach's decision. The Fever used only 9 active players and kept 3 incredibly capable, promising contributors locked on the bench in a 2-point, grueling road loss. The entire reason the Fever made roster moves was to add front court athleticism and defensive versatility. That athleticism was completely unavailable tonight because Stephanie White stubbornly chose to give them absolutely 0 minutes. Every single time the Fever lose a close game, the conversation instantly returns to the bench players who could have helped, who could have changed the momentum, but simply did not play. It's a broken record, and it's a direct indictment of the coaching staff. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. While the coaching staff was lost in their own confusion, the Valkyries were executing an incredibly physical, punishing, and borderline dirty style of defense that the officials seemed to ignore. Veronica Burton made it her absolute personal mission to be a relentless nightmare for Caitlin Clark all night long. She was physical, she was grabbing jerseys, and she was crossing the line multiple times, turning the game into a wrestling match rather than a basketball contest. The Indiana offense, outside of Caitlin, was a disorganized, frustrating mess, completely lacking any discernible rhythm or coherent strategy. Kelsey Mitchell finished the game playing over 30 minutes, but she managed to score only 14 points while shooting a highly inefficient 5 for 13 from the floor. She repeatedly drove blindly into the heavily congested paint, refusing to pass the basketball out to open shooters, only to get blocked time and time again by the Valkyries' towering interior defense. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. Even players like Sophie Cunningham, who was on the receiving end of Clark's historic 500th assist, struggled with efficiency, shooting a brutal 1 for 7 from beyond the three-point line. Aaliyah Boston fought hard, pulling down 6 rebounds and dishing out 4 assists, but she was limited to 13 points while shooting 4 for 11 from the floor. The entire starting lineup looked completely out of sorts, unable to find consistency or flow. However, amidst the darkness, the frustration, and the poor shooting percentages, there was one incredibly bright, shining revelation on the roster tonight. A player who absolutely refused to back down, who stepped up when the rest of the team faltered. Let's talk about Raven Johnson. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. While the rest of the starting offense struggled desperately to find consistency, Raven Johnson stepped onto the court and delivered an absolute masterpiece. She played 21 minutes and 20 seconds, and she made every single one of them count, demonstrating a level of efficiency and impact that no one else could match. Raven Johnson scored a hyper-efficient 16 points, shooting an unbelievable 7 for 10 from the field, which translates to a massive 70% shooting accuracy. She also shot 2 for 3 from behind the three-point arc. She was, without question, the absolute most efficient, lethal offensive player on the floor tonight. Not Clark, not Mitchell, not Boston. Raven Johnson. The rookie, who so many people on the internet unfairly doubted, who was essentially an afterthought in the rotation, came off the bench and ended the night with a team-high +4 rating. She was the only reason the Fever were even in a position to win this game at the end. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. And yet, the deepest, most painful irony of this entire loss is that the player who scored 16 points on 70% shooting, who was the single most impactful offensive force for the Fever, was sitting completely frozen on the bench for the first 30 minutes of the game while the rest of the team struggled. It's an inexplicable decision that screams of poor coaching and a fundamental misunderstanding of who your difference makers are. But even with Raven Johnson's heroic, game-saving efforts, this tragic story ultimately came down to the final, agonizing, heart-stopping seconds. The Fever were trailing by just 2 points, 88-90. The tension inside the Chase Center was so thick, it was practically suffocating. The Fever got the ball back for one last desperate possession. This is the exact moment where elite coaching separates the absolute winners from the losers. This is the moment where you draw up a brilliant play, create space, and get the ball into the hands of your historic superstar. Backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in, backslash in. Clock started ticking down. Chaos immediately erupted on the floor. The spacing was terrible. Aaliyah Boston, desperately trying to salvage the broken play, drove incredibly hard to the basket, absorbed massive, undeniable contact from the defense, and nothing. Pure silence. No whistle. The referees, who had been blowing their whistles loudly and aggressively all night long, who had called 24 fouls on the Indiana Fever, suddenly swallowed their whistles when the game was literally hanging in the balance. But as furious as we should be at the officials for that missed call, the biggest, most unforgivable failure of the final possession was not the referee. It was Stephanie White.